Hello and welcome. This is the first in a short series of videos I'm going to do for you about the Raspberry Pi. I'm going to show you how to get it going, how to get it configured, and then we're going to go over a couple of things that you can do with it. This first video is just going to be about showing you how to physically hook it up. In succeeding videos, I'll show you how to get it configured, and then there will be a couple more videos with different projects you can do with it. So let's get started. When you get the Raspberry Pi, this is what you get. Just a plain old white box. If you open it up, pull it out, here it is, anti-stat material. You can see it's about the size of a credit card. It's a computer on a chip, graphics processor, everything built in. Has places to hook up different accessories like keyboards, mice, video, and so on. We're going to go over that today. Now, one thing it doesn't have is it has RAM memory. It comes with 512. The Model B comes with 512 megabytes of RAM. But it doesn't have an operating system loaded, and in fact, it doesn't have anything that resembles disk storage. So the other thing you need to go along with this is a memory card, a standard SD memory card. And the memory card will plug into the bottom of the device. If you turn this over, you'll see a slot here. Memory card gets plugged in. So let me talk about this card a little bit. This is what's going to have the operating system on it and also any storage. The minimum you need to get is 4 gigabytes in size. They recommend a minimum class 4. These memory cards come in different classes depending on how fast they transfer information. They say the minimum is a 4. I'm going to recommend a 6, class 6, or maybe even a class 10. And these are going to have to be prepared. You need to get the operating system loaded on these before this will work. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a separate video. I'm not going to go over it now. But you need to get the operating system on here. You can buy one that's pre-configured. They're easy enough to configure yourself. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to stick the card in, insert it here. We're going to just assume for the sake of argument, this demonstration, that it's already configured and formatted. Flip it back over, and now we have to connect it to the rest of the peripherals and put some power to it. So let me put this back here. We'll go around the board here and talk about this just in general terms. We're going to need to hook up a power supply over on this jack over here. Your cell phone power charger will probably work for this. There are a couple of other different options I'll show you. You're going to hook up digital video over here. So the easiest thing to do with this is to hook it up to a high definition television. So if you have a high definition television with HDMI inputs on it, which is pretty standard these days, this will plug right into your television set. A lot of newer monitors also come with this HDMI connection. The other kind of digital connection you can use, and you'll need an adapter, but DVI is a little bit older specification. I'll show you what those cables look like in a minute. So you have your choice of HDMI or DVI connector, either to a television or a computer monitor for your video output. Over here you would connect an internet cable, Ethernet cable. You probably want a category 5E or category 6 Ethernet cable. And that would go off to your home router, plug directly into your home router for a wired connection. And it should work right out of the box if you hook this up to your home router with most home router configurations. And then finally, we're going to hook up USB devices here. First ones we'll hook up, keyboard and mouse, and I'll show you that. Now, if you don't have a digital monitor source, they do provide some backwards compatibility with older televisions that have the S-video inputs. These are also called composite video, S-video, maybe RCA video. This is a RCA phono plug connection. If you have an older television and it's got a series of 3 inputs, one of them will be yellow and the other 2 will be black and white or black and red or something or other like that, you'll be able to use this. Now, it also has a audio out, so if you use it with the analog video here, you'll need to make some sort of audio connection. You'll also need to make an audio connection if you use the HDMI, if you use the DVI adapter to connect to the digital video. HDMI carries the audio signal, but the DVI does not carry an audio signal. So let's get started here. I'm going to slide this back a little bit. to leave room. First thing we're going to do is hook up a USB keyboard and mouse. You probably have one of these lying around, or you can get one inexpensively. And I think let me pull this back so that you can see maybe a little bit more clearly all of the things that are going to be going on here. So we just need to plug these into the USB ports. It doesn't matter which goes where. Just go ahead and plug the mouse into one, the keyboard into another. And you're pretty much ready to go there. Next, you would hook up the internet, and I'm not going to demonstrate that, but you just connect Ethernet cable, Cat 5e or Cat 6. It plugs in here. That's a standard Ethernet jack for an Ethernet cable. Plug it in there, and you're ready to go. And the other end goes into your home router. Next, you're going to want to hook up video. As I say, the default on this is HDMI. This is an HDMI port or jack, depending on how you want to call it. The HDMI looks like this. Let's see if it snaps into focus. This is really standard hookup for most modern high-definition televisions. And also most of the more recent computer monitors also have HDMI input. This carries video and it carries audio, so you don't have to make a separate audio connection. And when you plug that in, one end of it is going to go to your television out here. The other end is going to plug into the Raspberry Pi here. Upside down there, just like that. And just to get this cord out of the way, I'm going to slip that under the keyboard here. Okay. All right, so now we've got keyboard, mouse, and video hooked up. Last thing we need to hook up is power. And for that, your cell phone charger is most likely going to work just fine. So here I have a cell phone charger. A couple of words about the cell phone charger. This needs to be a good quality one. If this is the original charger that came with your phone, it's probably good enough quality. Beware of the cheap ones. You can get these pretty cheap, as low as a couple of bucks. The cheap ones have been known to cause problems with the Raspberry Pi. Two issues. Number one, they need to supply enough power. They have to supply at least 700 milliamps of power. And you can find that by looking very carefully around here. You might need a magnifying glass, but usually there's some writing on this block somewhere that says the voltage and the power that it puts out, and it needs to be at least 750 milliamps. Now this is 850, so this one is going to work fine. Over here is a micro USB connector. That's pretty standard on most, but not all phones. And so if you have a good one of these, or if you need to go out and buy a new one, go out and buy a brand name good one, because the cheap ones have caused problems. And so then this, of course, gets plugged into the wall. The Raspberry Pi does not have an on-off switch. You just turn it on by plugging it in. So you want to make sure that everything else is hooked up. You got your keyboard, your mouse, the card's inserted, video cable is hooked up and ready to go. And then you just go ahead and make the connection here with the charger. And if this were connected and everything were plugged in, we would be ready to go. So let's talk about a few of the options we have here. This is the standard configuration, pretty much the easiest way to hook it up. Components you probably already have a USB keyboard and mouse, for example. But you can substitute a wireless keyboard and mouse. And so then you would just unplug these. You want to check the compatibility list. All hardware that you use with a Raspberry Pi, if possible, you should check it out and see if it's on the compatibility list. I'll post the URL for that in the description. Here we have a wireless keyboard, wireless mouse, and of course we need a dongle for that. So here's a little dongle that comes with this particular set. USB, and this just plugs right into the one of these USB ports. Doesn't matter which one. So we can plug that in just like that. And if it's compatible with a Raspberry Pi, and I think most of the newer ones probably are, there won't really need to be any configuration you need to do with this. It should just recognize that automatically. So that should work just fine. The other thing you can do is, instead of the Ethernet wired connection directly to your router, there are some wireless units that will work. And so you could unplug the Ethernet connection. Here's an example of an ultra miniature wireless transmitter, and that can simply plug into the USB port as well. So now we've got wireless keyboard, and we've also got wireless connection. Now, this has to be configured, and it can be configured once you turn the Raspberry Pi on and get through the configuration menu and load some utilities. So you can go ahead and plug that in now, but you won't have internet connection until you actually get the thing booted up, loaded, and ready to go. So there we have it. Now let's talk about some options for the power supply. Here I've got it hooked up to a cell phone charger. I've used up both of our USB ports, and you may at some point want to hook up either other peripherals in addition to these, or you may want to do some other option here. Maybe you don't want to use your cell phone charger for this. You could go out and buy another one. But another option that you can go with is to go with a powered USB hub. It has to be a USB hub that has power to it. Let me disconnect this, and I'll bring out the USB hub. Okay, now here's a powered USB hub. This one has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ports on it. It does have an adapter. You want to check the adapter and make sure the power rating. Now, hubs are usually going to have enough power to run several peripherals. This particular one is 2 amps. That's 2,000 milliamps. So that's well in excess of our 700 that we need for the Raspberry Pi. And the way this is hooked up, of course, this goes to the wall outlet. And we're going to pull these out. And we're going to plug these into the hub, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 connections between the hub and the Raspberry Pi. The first one is going to be the USB connection. And so this is a little plug that goes into this, comes around here and plugs in to the USB port. And what this cord does is this connects all of these ports to the USB port. So you could plug in other peripherals like an extra hard drive or a thumb drive or some other external storage or something like that. And that would do that. The other thing you can do, though, interestingly, is you can actually power the Raspberry Pi from the powered hub. And let's go back to our charger for a minute. This is our mobile phone charger. If you pull this apart, this is almost always a USB connection these days. So you have the block which goes in and plugs into the wall. Then this is just a USB cable. It's standard USB here, and it's micro USB here. If you have a spare one, you can get one, or you can order one of these cords again. If you order one, order a good quality one. Don't go cheap on this. But the way you power this from the hub is you go ahead and you plug this in there, and then the other end of it goes into the power supply. All right, so if we can get our a little bit crammed up here, but you can see what's going on. So we've got the USB hub here. We've got our wireless keyboard and mouse plugged into the hub. We've got our wireless internet connection plugged into the hub. We've got the hub plugged into the USB port to give USB connectivity, and we're powering the Raspberry Pi using one of the ports on the powered hub. Alrighty then, so that's pretty much it for the connections. The last thing I want to talk about are some of your video options. Now, just so we can see this, I'm going to take the keyboard and mouse out of the way. And let's talk about video. Now, I've said that the optimal solution is to plug this into a high-definition TV or a computer monitor that has HDMI HDMI capability. That's the default. I showed you the HDMI cord here. Again, take a look at that. With this kind of connector, and that's preferred. But there are a couple of other options. Now, if for digital, you may have a DVI connection. The DVI connection, I'm going to pull in a cord here and see if I can get you to look at that. These are kind of squarish connectors. Don't know how well you're going to be able to see them in. How close can I get them here? Does that help? There are 2 sets of 9 pins in a 3x3 array. So there's a 3x3 set of pins here, a 3x3 set of pins here, and then a little kind of a crosswise connector. So that's how you can tell if it's a DVI. If you have a DVI monitor, it's most likely going to look like this, where you already have a cable and it's going to have a male DVI on each end. One end of these goes into your monitor or your TV if you have an older HD TV with a DVI connection. Now for the other end, you're going to need an adapter. There's one or two ways that you can go. If you already have this cable, then you just need an HDMI to DVI adapter. Now these come in a couple of different flavors, so be sure you get the right one. It's a male HDMI on this side, and it's a female DVI on this side. The female DVI goes into, goes into the cable like this, and the other end goes into the Raspberry Pi like this, and then this goes off to your TV or your monitor. If you don't already have this cable, you can skip the adapter, and what you're going to want to do is just buy a cable that has male DVI or HDMI on one end and the male DVI on the other. And so you'll plug that into your Raspberry Pi, and you'll plug this into your TV or monitor. So the two options. Now, again, remember, if you make an HDMI connection, that carries the audio track. If you use an adapter to convert the HDMI to DVI, you're going to need to make an audio connection as well in order to get sound. Now, the third option on the video is that you may not have a digital monitor or TV. You might have an older TV, and if the older TV has this S-video or composite, you can hook it up that way. And so that's going to look, the cable's going to look something like this, where you got 3 of these RCA phono plugs, and one of them is going to be yellow, and the other 2 are going to be red and white or black or some combination of those. The yellow one is the video, and the red and black or red and white or black and white one are the audio signals. So if you need to hook it up this way, you hook up the video here, and then what you're going to need to do is get an adapter. You can get an adapter that goes from these 2 phono plugs to a single 1/8" stereo phone plug in order to hook up your audio. So that's the way you would do it if you have an older analog. Now there are 2 kinds of video inputs that really aren't going to work too well for you. First is VGA. VGA is the older standard. You may see on older computers and so on. It's possible to get an HDMI to VGA adapter, but it requires some extra configuration. It's kind of hard to get going. It's documented on the web, so if you're really stuck with that, then take a look at that. I'm not going to go into it. The other one that won't work is what's called component video. Component video looks a lot like this. The connectors are 3 RCA phono plugs, but you can tell it's component video if they're red, green, and blue rather than these colors. So if you see red, green, and blue connections, that's component video, and that also can't be directly hooked up to the Raspberry Pi. Now I've got a television here, a little portable television that I'm going to show you where some of these inputs are. Let me bring this over. Okay, so here's the back of this television. Let's see what we're looking at on the back. Now, there we go. Okay, so over here are HDMI inputs, and that would be the preferred. So if you've got HDMI inputs, just go ahead and plug it into one of the HDMI inputs, and that's the way to go. This one's showing the older VGA style. The VGA style adapter here is the one that won't work. It's usually blue, and it's got 3 rows of pins, and then there would be audio down here. That's going to be kind of hard for you to get going. The other one that's showing on the back of this one is the component video I talked about, where it's got the 3 jacks, all right, the phono plugs, but they're the green, red, and blue. And this is not going to work for you for the Raspberry Pi. However, this particular TV does have on the side of it legacy jacks. And if we look at the legacy jacks, these are the S-Video jacks. So we've got a yellow one. Let's see, yellow one here. There's the yellow one, and then we've got a red and white one over there for the video. So we could hook it up to this if this was the only kind of input that the TV had. So those are the kinds of video component choices. And one of those is probably going to work for you. And we've talked about the power choices. Powered hub is a good way to go, or you can just use your cell phone adapter. We've talked about the internet connection. You can plug it with an Ethernet cable directly into your router. We talked about the keyboard and mouse. Easiest way is probably just with a standard USB keyboard and mouse. But if you can get these wireless deals set up. And then we've talked about the card, and in the next video I'm going to show you what to do with this card and how that works. So I hope that covers the setup for you. That'll give you enough information to get going, know what you need, what you have, what you might need to go out and get. And I'll catch you in the next video, and we'll talk more about programming the card. Thanks for watching.